The planet burned before they ever touched it. From low orbit, Alora Prime looked like a wound, its cloud systems torn open by kinetic strikes, its nightside latticed with the orange crawl of burning cities. Massive contrails marked where orbital rail slugs had punched through atmosphere, each one like a god's fist smashing into defensive grids, fortress cities, and hive clusters that had once belonged to the Zarelian hegemony. The same hegemony that had slaughtered Earth's outer colonies. The same hegemony that had broadcast the executions. Revenge was not abstract anymore. It had coordinates. Onboard the orbital assault carrier Legends fall soldiers prepared to drop into the madness, chaos, destruction below. Death called. Revenge called. The red lights inside drop pod 7 pulsed like a dying heart. 10 figures stood locked into mag clamps, armored boots fused to the deck as the carrier shuddered around them. Their armor-blackened ceramite layered with adaptive ablatives was scarred before it ever saw the ground. Each suit bore the sigil of the Terran Expeditionary Forces, a broken world wrapped in iron. This was Vanguard Squad, First Wave, First Boots, First Blood. Lieutenant Matt Connors, callsign Atlas, stood at the front, helmet visor down, HUD scrolling with kill zones and threat vectors. His voice cut through the pod on a closed channel, calm and precise. Final check, sound off. 1, growled Gunnery Sergeant Eli Rourke, callsign Bulldog, heavy weapons specialist. His exo-servos whined softly as he shifted the mass driver cannon locked to his right arm. 2, said Corporal Jack Moreno, callsign Ghost. Recon, long rifle mag locked across his back, optics already feeding terrain projections. 3, Lena Kovac, callsign Viper. Breacher, shotgun loaded with thermobaric slugs, shield folded against her left arm. 4, Dr. Isaiah Wren, callsign Patch. Combat medic, nanite dispensers primed, stimulant injectors green. 5, Sergeant Thomas Lynn, callsign Brick. Pointman, powered assault shield, kinetic hammer magnetized at his hip. 6, Nix, real name classified. Electronic warfare and drone control. Her armor hummed with active signal warfare. 7, Owen Park, callsign Fuse. Demolitions. Enough explosives to level a city block if command ever lost its mind. 8, Hernando Delgado, callsign Havoc. Close quarters battle specialist. Twin smart SMGs locked and hungry. 9, Caleb Ward, marksman. Mid-range fire support, rail carbine steady as a prayer. Connors nodded once. 10, Atlas, combat veteran. He was last for a reason. Above them, klaxons wailed. Drop window 30 seconds. The AI announced as the carrier took enemy fire. The pod shook as flak detonated nearby, the carrier's void shields rippling under impact. Somewhere out there, other pods were already dying, burning streaks of metal and men. Nix's voice came sharp. Enemy tracking is live. Hegemony point defense grid survived first strike. Rourke snorted. Figures. Bastards always do. Connors keyed the channel to battalion command. Static answered, then a voice soaked in distortion and urgency. Vanguard, you're greenlit. Objective Iron Spear remains priority. Urban Megastructure, Grid Kilo 7. Secure landing zone, disable planetary shield relay. You're on your own for the first 10 mics. Connors didn't reply with bravado. He never did. Copy. Vanguard out. The POD's restraints disengaged with a thunderclap. Gravity vanished. Then the pod dropped. Atmospheric entry. Fire screamed past the hull. The pod hit atmosphere like a meteor. Heat alarms shrieking as ablative layers burned away in incandescent sheets. Internal grav compensators struggled, pinning the squad in crushing G-forces. External cams flooded their HUDs. The sky was a war. Dozens of pods streaked downward, some blossoming into fireballs as interceptors or ground-based lasers caught them. Hegemony fighters' sleek, predatory craft darted between falling meteors, ripping open pods mid-descent. Pod 3 is gone, Nix said, voice tight. No survivors. A missile detonated close enough to spin them. Warning runes flared red. Wren cursed. Hull breach beta segment sealed. Connor's voice stayed steady. Hold. The POD's AI counted down. 10, 9. The city rushed up to meet them, a nightmare of black spires, shield pylons, and anti-air emplacements vomiting fire skyward. 5. A rail slug punched through a neighboring pod, turning it into shrapnel. 3. Rourke laughed, raw and feral. Let's bring the sky down with us. 1. Impact. Landing zone Kilo 7. The pod slammed into a transit concourse at hypersonic speed, pulverizing ferrocrete and armored vehicles alike. Shockwaves rippled outward, throwing enemy infantry through the air like broken dolls. Explosive bolts fired. The pod split open. War erupted. Move. Brick was out first. Shield raised as plasma fire slammed into it in blinding sheets. The shield flared blue, then red. Havoc and Delgado followed, weapons barking, smart rounds stitching across hegemony shock troops scrambling for cover. Their enemies were tall, plated in gold and ivory armor, faces hidden behind insectal visors beautiful and monstrous. Viper breached a barricade with a single shot. The explosion sucked the air out of the concourse, turning enemies into silhouettes etched in flame. Rourke planted his feet and unleashed hell. The mass driver cannon roared, each hypersonic round punching through armor, walls, vehicles. Anything. Enemy troops simply ceased to exist where the rounds hit. Contact, east and vertical, Ghost called out, already moving, cloak shimmering as he vanished up a collapsed stairwell. Nyx's drones screamed overhead, popping like angry insects, flooding the battlespace with jamming and false targets. Connors advanced through it all, rifle precise, efficient. Every shot killed, every kill bought space, but the hegemony had numbers. And prepared positions. Atlas. Brick shouted, they're reinforcing from the upper tiers. Connors snapped his gaze upward. The megastructure rose like a steel mountain, balconies and skybridges packed with heavy infantry and auto turrets spinning to life. Connors made the call. Patch, smoke and wounded triage here. Fuse, give me a hole. Rourke, suppress those balconies. Everyone else, on me. Fuse was already smiling behind his visor. Say less. He hurled a charge. The explosion tore a glowing wound into the structure's base. Go. They pushed through the breach under withering fire, the concourse behind them filling with enemy reinforcements. A plasma bolt slipped through Brick's guard and slammed into his shoulder. Still good, Brick grunted, tearing the bolt free as Patch flooded him with nanites. The corridor beyond was narrow, brutal, perfect killing ground. And Vanguard Squad owned it. By the time the firing slowed, the floor was slick with alien blood. Connors took a breath. Objective Iron Spear was above them. The planetary shield relay was still online. And the invasion, Earth's revenge, had only just begun. The inside of Iron Spear was a cathedral to conquest. Vast load-bearing pillars rose through multiple levels, etched with alien script that glowed faintly as if the structure itself were alive and aware of the intruders crawling through its veins. Gravity fluctuated in subtle waves. Hegemony tech bending physics just enough to disorient anyone not trained for it. Vanguard Squad moved anyway. Brick took point, shield forward, hammer free now and humming with kinetic charge. Every step boomed through the corridor as if the building resented his presence. Behind him, Connors ran the squad like a scalpel, tight intervals, overlapping fields of fire, constant motion. Nyx, Connors said, what's above us? Her drones whispered through the air vents, feeds stacking in Connors' HUD. 3 levels up, shield relay core. Heavy fortification, automated turrets, at least 2 platoons of hegemony wardens, and... She paused. And something else. Rourke snorted. That's comforting. Ghost's voice came soft over comms. Sniper nests forming on the exterior superstructure. They know we're here. They always do. Connors replied. We keep climbing. The corridor ended in a vertical shaft, once a civilian mag lift, now blown open by orbital tremors. It plunged upward through darkness, broken platforms spiraling around the core like ribs. Enemy fire rained down immediately. Plasma bolts splashed against Brick's shield, detonating in bursts of light and heat. One slipped past and scorched Delgado's thigh armor. Armor compromised but mobile. Havoc barked, dragging Delgado into cover. Connors raised his fist. Rourke, clear the shaft. The heavy gunner grinned. He braced the mass driver against the wall, recalibrated for vertical fire, and squeezed the trigger. The shaft turned into a kill funnel. Hypersonic rounds screamed upward, ricocheting and detonating, turning platforms, enemies, and turrets into expanding clouds of shrapnel. Screams echoed down the shaft, alien voices cut short. Paths opened briefly. Rourke warned, turrets are respooling. Brick, Viper climb. Everyone else, suppress. Brick launched upward using his suit's grav assist, slamming into the first platform like a falling tank. Viper followed, shotgun barking as she breached a defensive nest at point-blank range. The squad ascended under fire, leapfrogging platforms, hauling each other up as the structure fought back gravity surges, auto guns deploying from hidden panels, energy fields snapping into place. Then the counterattack came. Contacts. Rear. Ward shouted. The corridor they'd come from erupted in gold and ivory armor as hegemony shock lancers surged forward, energy pikes crackling with blue and white arcs. Close combat, Connors ordered. The fight turned savage. Brick met the first lancer head-on, shield locking the energy spear in place as his hammer came around in a brutal arc. The impact crushed armor, bone, and whatever passed for a chest cavity. Havoc and Delgado moved like wolves, flanking, smart SMGs chattering in controlled bursts. Viper stepped into the chaos, her shotgun turning enemies into red vapor at arm's length. Patch worked frantically behind them, dragging Ward back as a plasma bolt punched through his side. "Stay with me, Caleb," Patch muttered, flooding the wound with nanites and pain suppressants. "You're not dying here. I don't have time to die." Ward rasped, too much shooting left. Ghost's rifle cracked from above, dropping lancers mid-charge with precise shots through visors and joints. But the hegemony kept coming. Nix's voice spiked. "Enemy signal surge reinforcements inbound from upper tiers. They're cutting off the climb." Connors saw it then, the trap closing. Iron Spear wasn't just a relay tower. It was a meat grinder, designed to bleed attackers dry before they ever reached the core. "Fuse," Connors said. "I need chaos." Fuse didn't hesitate. He slammed a charge into a load-bearing column and smiled grimly. "Hope you like rearranging architecture." The explosion was catastrophic. The platform buckled, half the shaft collapsing inward as gravity spasmed violently. Enemies tumbled screaming into the void below, crushed or impaled on twisted metal. But the structure screamed too. Warning runes flashed across the squad's HUDs. Structural integrity critical. Gravity flux unstable. The climb turned into a race. They pushed upward as Iron Spear began to tear itself apart, sections collapsing, emergency fields flickering on and off. Outside, through shattered viewports, the city burned as Terran forces fought street by street below. "Atlas," Nix said quietly, "we're not alone anymore." Connors felt it, a pressure at the edge of perception, like being watched. Then they arrived at the relay level. The doors were massive, ornate, and already opening. What stepped through wasn't infantry. It was a hegemony exarch. Tall even by alien standards, its armor flowed like liquid gold, energy veins pulsing beneath translucent plates. A crown-like array floated above its head, crackling with psychic distortion that made the air itself recoil. Brick swore. "That's new." The exarch spoke not aloud, but inside their heads. "Children of a dead world. You climb only to fall." The squad opened fire. Bullets, slugs, and plasma slammed into the exarch's shields, detonating harmlessly against an invisible barrier. The alien raised one hand and Brick flew. He hit the far wall hard enough to crater it, shield torn from his grip. His vitals spiked, then dipped. "Brick," Patch shouted. Connors didn't hesitate. "All units focus fire. Nix, disrupt that crown." Nix pushed her systems past safe limits. Drones screamed, flooding the air with EMP pulses and signal ghosts. The exarch staggered. That was enough. Rourke planted his feet and fired. The mass driver round punched through the exarch's chest, collapsing its shield in a cascade of light. Viper followed with a thermobaric slug that turned the alien's torso into a furnace. The exarch screamed, this time aloud, as it disintegrated. Silence followed, then alarms. "Shield relay core is 50 meters ahead," Nix said, breathless. "But, Atlas, we've got incoming signatures. Heavy, elite." Connors looked at his squad. Brick was conscious but barely. Ward was bleeding but upright. Ammo was low, armor was shattered and scorched. And Earth's invasion depended on what happened next. "Set charges on the relay," Connors said. "We hold until it blows." Outside, Iron Spear burned. And the war for the planet climbed with them. The relay chamber was a wound at the heart of Iron Spear. A cavernous sphere of suspended platforms and glowing conduits, the planetary shield relay hung at its center like a captive star, rings of alien machinery rotating around a pulsing core of energy. Every rotation sent ripples through reality, bending light and gravity in subtle, nauseating ways. Nix whistled softly. "Yeah, that thing's a problem." Fuse was already moving, Mag locking himself to a service strut and deploying charges with practiced precision. "Give me 2 minutes and this whole planet loses its umbrella." "You've got 90 seconds, Connors said, "maybe less," because the enemy was coming. The air shimmered as hegemony hunters phased into the chamber, 12 of them at first, then more. Taller, leaner than standard troops, their armor matte black and threaded with crimson light. Each carried weapons that hurt to look at, edges vibrating with dimensional shear. Ghost sucked in a breath. These aren't line troops. They're here for us. Connors raised his rifle. Then let's be worth the trip. The first wave hit like a storm. Hunters moved fast, too fast, blades carving arcs of blue light as they leapt between platforms. One closed the distance in a heartbeat, its weapon screaming as it struck Brick's shield. The shield shattered. Brick roared and met the alien head-on anyway, hammer swinging in a desperate arc. The blow crushed the hunter's torso, but the counterstrike drove a blade through Brick's abdomen. Time slowed. Patch shouted his name. Brick looked down at the glowing blade embedded in him, then back up at the enemy. Worth it, he growled and detonated the grenade mag locked to his chest. The explosion engulfed the platform, taking 3 hunters with him. Brick's vitals flatlined. Brick is down, Patch yelled, voice breaking. He's gone. Connors felt it like a punch to the gut. No time to mourn. No time to stop. Hold the line, he shouted. For Brick, Rourke's mass driver thundered, punching hunters out of the air mid-leap. Havoc and Delgado fought back-to-back, emptying magazines at point-blank range, their movements instinctive and brutal. Ward took a blade through the shoulder and still fired, rail carbine glowing red-hot as he dropped another hunter. Ghost moved like a phantom, shots cracking from impossible angles, but even he couldn't be everywhere. A hunter slipped through. It landed behind Fuse. Connors saw the blade rise. Fuse get down. Too late. The blade punched through Fuse's chest, lifting him off his feet. Fuse coughed, blood floating in 0G as gravity flickered. He looked at Connors, visor cracked, and laughed weakly. Charges are set. Then he thumbed the detonator. The relay core screamed. Energy surged wildly, arcs of light ripping through the chamber as containment failed. Hunters staggered, some disintegrating outright as reality tore them apart. Nix screamed over comms. Core is overloading. Shield collapse in 30 seconds. Outside, the sky over Alora Prime change. Terran fleet sensors registered it instantly, the planetary shield flickering, then shattering like glass. Orbital fire rained down. Inside the chamber, Connors grabbed Fuse's detonator from his drifting body. Everyone fall back, now. They ran, leapt, fell, fired as iron spear died around them. Platforms collapsed into the void. Gravity inverted, then vanished entirely. Rourke took a hit to the leg, servo blown out. Delgado hauled him forward under fire. Patch dragged Ward, whose blood trailed behind him like a comet. Ghost was last, covering, until a hunter tackled him mid-air. Connors turned and fired, emptying his rifle into the tangle. The hunter burst apart. Ghost didn't answer. Connors caught him as gravity slammed back on. Ghost's visor was dark. Ghost? Connors said quietly. No response. Nix's voice was shaking now. Atlas, we have to go. The whole structure is coming down. Connors looked at the bodies. Brick, Fuse, Ghost, 3 gone. He closed his fist. Move. They burst through an emergency chute just as Iron Spear collapsed in on itself, the relay chamber imploding in a sun-bright flash. They hit the streets hard. Smoke, fire, screams, Terran armor pushing forward as dropships screamed overhead, guns blazing. The invasion was in full swing now. Earth's forces pouring through the breach Vanguard had opened. Connors pulled himself to his feet and looked at what remained of his squad. 6 standing, wounded, exhausted, alive. Rourke spat blood and laughed. Hell of a light show. Nix wiped her visor, voice raw. Fleet confirms shield down, planets open. Patch knelt beside the fallen, marking their armor with battlefield rights. Connors keyed battalion command. Objective Iron Spear neutralized, he said. Vanguard Squad reduced but operational. There was a pause on the line. Then, copy, Vanguard, you just changed the course of the war. Connors looked up at the burning sky. Brick, Fuse, Ghost, this isn't over, he said softly. And somewhere deeper in the city, the enemy was already preparing their answer. Alora Prime did not fall quietly. With the planetary shield gone, the sky had become a killing field. Terran battleships carving glowing scars across the upper atmosphere, dropships descending in screaming waves, orbital fire chewing entire districts into molten ruin. But the hegemony did not retreat. They adapted. Vanguard Squad moved through the ruins of what had once been a commercial spire district, now a canyon of collapsed towers and burning transit lines. Ash fell like black snow, coating armor, clogging joints, turning every breath into grit. Connors raised a clenched fist. The squad froze. Something was wrong. Nix's voice came low, tight. I'm blind, Atlas. Full spectrum blackout, no drones, no passive scans. Someone's jamming everything. Rourke shifted his mass driver, grimacing as his damaged leg servo whined. Hunters? No, Nyx replied. Worse. The answer announced itself with silence. No distant gunfire. No screams. No engines. Just the sound of ash falling. Then Ward dropped. He didn't cry out. 1 second he was moving. The next his head snapped sideways as a needle-thin projectile punched clean through his visor. He hit the ground already dead. Sniper! Havoc shouted. They scattered for cover as hypersonic rounds cracked through the air, punching fist-sized holes through ferrocrete like it was paper. Connors slid in beside Ward's body, already knowing there was nothing Patch could do. Patch didn't argue. He just closed Ward's eyes through the shattered visor. Nyx whispered, Atlas, I'm picking up something now. Multiple signatures. They're phasing. The ruins around them shimmered. Figures emerged from the distortion. Hegemony revenants. They wore no visible armor, just flowing combat skins that bent light and space around them. Their weapons were long, elegant rifles grown rather than built, humming with barely contained energy. Connors felt a chill crawl up his spine. These are executioners, Nyx said. They're deployed when the hegemony wants survivors erased. Bad day to be memorable. Rourke muttered. The revenants fired. The world exploded into motion. Connors dragged Patch behind a fallen pillar as a shot vaporized the cover they'd been using seconds earlier. Delgado and Havoc returned fire, smart rounds detonating against empty air as revenants blinked between positions. Rourke planted himself and fired anyway. The mass driver round didn't care about stealth. It tore through a revenant mid-phase, snapping it back into reality just long enough to die. They bleed, Rourke roared. That was all the encouragement they needed. Nyx overclocked her suit, dumping raw noise into the battlespace white-hot electronic chaos that forced the revenants fully into phase. Ghosting fields collapsed, targets solidified, Connors surged forward, close range, fast, violent, Viper bloodied but still lethal took a revenant apart with 2 shells to the chest. Havoc tackled another off a ledge, both disappearing into the smoke below. Then Patch screamed. Connors turned just in time to see a revenant blade punch through Patch's back. Patch staggered, dropping his medkit. He looked at Connors, eyes wide but calm. Sorry, sir, Patch said softly. Guess I'm done patching. Connors emptied his sidearm into the revenant, blowing it apart in a spray of light and ash. Patch fell. 4 gone now. The hunt intensified. They ran through collapsing streets, through burning hab blocks, through the bodies of civilians and soldiers alike. Revenants struck from nowhere, testing, probing, bleeding them. Delgado took a shot through the leg and kept moving. Viper went down under 3 revenants, taking 2 with her before the 3rd finished her. Nyx screamed in rage and unleashed a localized EMP that dropped half the district into darkness and took 2 revenants with it. By the time they reached the extraction zone, only 4 remained. Connors, Rourke, Nyx, Delgado. Dropships roared overhead, autocannons ripping into advancing hegemony armor. Terran lines were forming barely. Connors keyed extraction. Vanguard actual requesting emergency pickup. We are being hunted by revenants. The reply came instantly. Negative, Vanguard. Airspace is contested. You'll have to make it to friendly lines. Connors looked at the map. 2 kilometers of open ruin. Revenants closing fast. Rourke chuckled darkly. Hell of a retirement plan. They moved. The final revenant ambush came at a shattered plaza, enemy fire boxing them in from all sides. Delgado went down first, buying time with a grenade that erased 2 executioners. Nyx was next, caught mid-hack, blade through the chest. She looked surprised more than afraid. Connors killed the revenant with his bare hands. When it was over, only 2 Terrans stood in the ash. Connors and Rourke, bloodied, broken, still breathing. Terran tanks rolled into the plaza minutes later, guns blazing, forcing the remaining hegemony forces to withdraw. A lieutenant ran up, wide-eyed. Sir, are you Vanguard? Connors nodded once. The lieutenant swallowed. You're all that's left? Connors looked back at the ruins. Yes. That night, Alora Prime officially fell. The hegemony lost its first core world. But Earth paid for it in blood. And Connors knew deep in his bones that the war was far from over. Only 1 chapter remained. Alora Prime burned for 3 days. From orbit, it looked like a dying star, entire continents lit by firestorms, cities reduced to skeletal grids glowing dull red beneath rolling clouds of ash. The Terran expeditionary forces had taken the planet, but victory felt hollow, carved out of bones and broken armor. The war did not pause to mourn. Back at Forward Operating Base Victor 9, Matt Connors stood alone at the edge of the landing pad as medevac shuttles came and went, their engines screaming like wounded animals. His armor had been stripped away, replaced with a field jacket still stained with ash and blood that wasn't all his. Gunnery Sergeant Eli Rourke sat nearby on a cargo crate, leg braced in a skeletal exo-frame, smoking something illegal and foul-smelling. "They're calling it a decisive victory," Rourke said, voice rough. "Command loves that phrase." Connors didn't answer right away. In the distance, mass graves were being dug by auto-drones. Rows of armored bodies lay covered in thermal sheets, tags blinking faint green as battlefield AI finalized casualty reports. 10 went in, 2 came out. "They always do," Connors said finally. Rourke followed his gaze. Brick would have laughed at that. "Fuse too," Connors said. Ghost would have said nothing and meant everything. Silence settled between them. A shuttle touched down behind them. An officer stepped out, fleet gray, metal still too clean. "Rear Admiral Harold Cross, Expeditionary Command." "Lieutenant Connors," he said. "Sergeant Rourke." They stood. Rourke winced but didn't complain. Cross looked at them for a long moment. Vanguard Squad's actions directly enabled the collapse of the planetary shield and the capture of Alora Prime. Casualty projections suggest your success saved over 60,000 Terran lives. Connors met his eyes. "At the cost of 8. Cross nodded once. "War doesn't balance its books fairly." He handed Connors a data slate. "Post-action intelligence," he said. "Recovered from Iron Spear's lower vaults after the collapse." Connors activated it. Holographic images bloomed: star maps, force deployments, colony markers. Earth colonies, all marked before the invasions. "Those aren't conquests." Nix's voice echoed in his memory. "They're rehearsals." Cross confirmed it. The hegemony wasn't expanding. It was positioning. Alora Prime was a linchpin: logistics, shields, command oversight. Rourke exhaled slowly. "So this was just the opening move?" "Yes," Cross said, "and now they know what Earth can do when cornered." Connors closed the slate. "They'll escalate." Cross's expression hardened. "They already are." Deep space listening posts picked up mobilization orders hours ago. Entire fleets. Weapons we've never seen before. Connors thought of the Revenants. The Exarch. The precision of the hunt. "They don't want territory anymore," he said. "They want us gone." Cross didn't deny it. At dawn, Connors visited a memorial he and Eli had made for their fallen comrades. The memorial was simple. 8 helmets stood in a line, scarred and blackened, names etched in white light beneath each one. Brick, Fuse, Ghost, Ward, Patch, Viper, Delgado, Havoc. Connors stood before them, hands clasped behind his back. Rourke stood beside him, straight despite the pain. A chaplain spoke words that barely cut through the wind. Connors didn't hear them. He remembered Brick's laugh, Fuse's grin, Ghost's silence, Patch's steady hands. When it was over, Connors stepped forward. He placed his unit insignia at the base of the display. "I won't say it was worth it," he said quietly. "Because it wasn't." The wind carried his words away. "But I swear this, Earth will never be hunted again." Rourke nodded once. "Damn right." 6 months later, back on the carrier, Legends fall in deep space. The war had grown. Entire systems burned now. The hegemony had unleashed weapons that cracked moons and folded space into killing corridors. Earth responded in kind: new fleets, new doctrines, new kinds of soldiers. Connors stood in a briefing chamber, older somehow, harder. Across from him stood 9 figures. New armor, new faces, a new Vanguard Squad. Connors looked at them and saw ghosts layered over the living. "I won't lie to you," he said. "The enemy is smarter, faster, and more ruthless than anything we've ever faced." He paused. "And they remember us." The squad listened, silent and focused. Connor activated the holodouble. A familiar star system appeared. Alora Prime marked in red. Beneath it, a symbol burned into the display. A crown of light, the same one the Exarch had worn. Intact, recovered, active. Rourke's voice came over comms from the back of the room. "Looks like the bastards left us a calling card." Connor's jaw tightened. "Gear up," he said. "We're going back in." The stars shifted. The war widened. And somewhere in the dark between systems, something ancient and furious had learned humanity's name.